ripping? We're recording? Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, Allie, thank you for coming out.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So we want to start all of these interviews with hard-hitting conversations, hard-hitting questions. So we're going to start with you and ask, who is Lily?
Yeah, so a lot of people will ask that question. They think it's a family member or old grandmother or something like that. When I was a little kid, my dad and I used to garden out in our backyard, and that was our thing every summer. And he had called his company when he started it 25 years ago, Lily, before I was even involved in it. And it's just serendipitous that now we work together, and he chose our favorite flower as the company name.
So it sort of is a family thing, but it's not like a person.
It's not a person, exactly.
So were you the inspiration behind the name then?
I tell him that every day.
So you guys are basically a family business, it sounds like. So it's you, your father, and then who else is on
and
the
then
team?
Jody, my mom.
Okay.
And originally it was my dad and my mom. My dad would be the developer. He'd find the property, finance it, and then develop it. He was the contractor on the job, and then my mom would sell it. And they've been doing that for the last 25 years as a team. They've been doing a great job, and they have just a great name in the city for building quality, beautiful work. Whenever I would just be in a house with another agent, they would say, oh, they just always knock it out. They always do something a little special, a little extra. So it's always just been a point of pride for me, at least, to be able to be working with them now.
And then how did you enter the picture?
They
convince you?
No, I just happened to be walking in their office one day. I was living at home. I was working full-time and in grad school to be a therapist, and they lived in the city. I was going to Penn, and I walked down in the basement in where their office was, and I was checking out their office and happened to be walking in on my dad during a meeting, and I said, I have my summers off. I can help you with some of this office work if you need some help. And he said, sure, why not? And 7 years later, I've been there ever since.
So like now that we like fast forward 7 years, kind of it sounded like it got off to a great start. Is it still the case there? Or?
Yeah, so I did have background in doing renovations, flips on my own. He had a construction company. So when I was in grad school, 22, I started doing some renovations. And that got me really excited about the creative process of doing real estate and being a part of it from the building perspective. And so that was one of the reasons I decided to switch in full time. And now having this background experience that I have, it's really helped to contribute something to the business. It's not something that I kind of walked in and they had a fully operating development firm because they were a vertically integrated, construction development firm. So now we're operating just as a development firm that has a little bit of different dynamic going on. So that's kind of where we're at now. It's shifted a little bit.
That was one of my biggest questions with you guys is how your company has evolved over time to do what you're doing now. Because I remember you mentioning in the past that you've had a construction background. Now you've decided to get out of it, and you're mainly focused on building just as developers and hiring out the construction piece. Yeah.
So we decided, during COVID actually, it gave us a lot of time to think about what we're really good at and what we really love to do. And between my dad and I, our passion has always been development and finding places and what can we do creative with these spaces. And right now we're doing 2 projects. One is a wellness-inspired development that's going to have a wellness co-working space in it. I don't know if I told you about that one yet.
No, that sounds interesting to me, though.
I know,
Our shared interest.
To talk. Yeah, exactly. And then the other is an aging-in-place apartment building for people so that they don't have to move out of their house when they don't have accessible features in their house. So that's the stuff that we wanted to spend all of our time on. What can we do to change the landscape of our neighborhoods, but also offer something to them that's a little different, that's a little niche, and it's a value to the community. So that was the main reason we decided to switch. We said, right now we do development, we do construction, we know both really well, but what do we want to focus on? So
it's a mix sort of like what you're passionate about and also what you think you're better at.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
I think it's really valuable to have that construction experience because we know how the back office of a construction business should look like. We know when we walk on a job site, how something is plumbed in. If they did the right insulation around the PVC, what type of coverings they did over the sprinkler lines, making sure they take pictures before they cover up the walls.
Yeah,
when you're doing water testing and it doesn't link you, right?
Yeah, right. That's funny you say that because literally, we kind of did the opposite, right? Like we went into construction during COVID, where we were just developers, and then we started to do construction ourselves because not having that technical background, we were just fully relying on someone else. Like we had to just throw our trust into another contractor, who sometimes didn't always have our best interest in mind, and that really came back to bite us in the ass, for lack of a better phrase. So
it's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. You're still, I'm sure, on site, almost daily at each of your projects, just checking on the GC's work, who's checking on the subcontractor's work, who's checking on his employees' work. So it's like whisper down the lane. It's like so much stuff gets missed.
And sometimes we're like, we want to use the contractors we've been using for 20 years. So can you use our electrician? Can you use our HVAC? So when we see something's done wrong, I'll shoot him a text. I'll be like, what just happened up on the second floor? And he's like, I know, I'll fix it.
Oh, nice. So you can kind of bypass the GC in some scenarios and go straight to your guy.
I try not to, because I try to stay in my lane, and that's always our thing, is like, just stay in your lane. My dad has a specific role that he is involved in now, and my role is development. His is.
I was going to ask, is there any butting heads there, and what's the family dynamic?
So I'm really lucky that my dad and I work very well together. We're very similar.
It all started with the lilies.
It all started with the lilies and the flowering, the flower planting, gardening, and we're both very intense people, and so we can be very intense and not get our feelings hurt. So we could both say something really honest to each other, and then we move on. And then it's just another day, and then we keep it going. But I think that's what's so important about both of us, is that we could be really honest with each other about, during COVID, when wellness was really on the minds of everybody. And we were talking about what would we want to do to make a difference in the community in Philadelphia that would provide some benefit. And when we had to make the decision to just focus on development and close our construction company, we realized that was the only way to do that.
Sure.
So it gave us the space and the time to think it through.
Do you guys ever think that, I know you've talked about expanding within and how you've done with your family. Do you ever envision going off on your own, or is this something where you kind of cemented yourself within the family and you may take over someday, kind of thing?
Well, I've done projects on my own, and I've done projects with Lily, and it all goes back to what is my real purpose for doing what I'm doing. And if I can do that more likely with Lily, which is this wellness project that we have going on, and we're creating a whole new company out of it, where it's going to be a wellness co-working space that could occupy different commercial spaces throughout the city. And it provides space for people who are wellness practitioners, which I used to be. And one of the toughest things about being a practitioner is you're giving so much of your energy out, and it's hard to get that back. And it's hard to fill up your cup, as they say. Yeah. And if you have a community of people around you who are also going through that same thing, it just provides the camaraderie, which oftentimes wellness practitioners are going back to back, client to client, and they don't have. It's super lonely.
Constantly giving.
Exactly. And you're not able to recharge. And I think another part of treating any type of wellness or enhancing someone's wellness is to get a holistic approach. And if we had a center that had all these wellness modalities in one place, you could just go and get treated by as many people as was referred to you. So you have referral sources. You have just a different way of looking at your health besides the way that they look at it now, which is just that's not how you treat a house. When you have a leak, you don't just look at one part. Like, you have to test the whole building.
Yeah, you got to trace it back to the original cause and then treat that. And then you can fix the drywall that looks a little bit damp.
Exactly, exactly.
It's
Sounds
cool
like
that there's like, you have this background, right? Like, you are this sort of wellness practitioner. You've done that in the past, right? That's where you came from, and then you're designing the space. So you know what those people need, and you can sort of design the space with them in mind. Like, you're very, intentional and purposeful, which is like not surprising to me, just because, conversations that you and I have had in the past.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're really putting a lot of that into Lily, which is awesome.
This episode is brought to you by Josh Gibbons and Cross Country Mortgage. Josh focuses in residential and commercial mortgages with clients ranging from first-time home buyers to investors. Whether you're looking to add to your portfolio or need a creative solution to your purchasing needs, Josh and his team have you covered. Josh is always responsive and can help you navigate any situation, no matter the complexity. Follow Josh at Josh G Mortgage on Instagram. That's at Josh G Mortgage on Instagram for consistent market updates and home buyer advice.
Do you think, like, do you have a concise, and this might be a difficult question to answer on the spot, but do you have like a concise purpose with Lily? You think that you're like, okay, the company and my individual purpose is this. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to bring to the community.
Yeah, so absolutely. I would say just the foundation of our company is just the quality of what we do, and the fact that we stand by what we do. We answer emails and calls when people call us 5 years later, and we're helping them out with like whatever they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's a very different tune than like if you just hear any random person on the street talking about a contractor or like a developer. That's not what you usually hear.
I mean, my dad he's just a great guy, and he will answer his phone for anybody. I had to figure out a way. I'm like, we got to give him your email so you're not getting called at like 10 o'clock at night for like, who knows, somebody broke into their window. It's not even your fault. So, I mean, he's just how homeowners will call if they have questions about things.
Oh,
so
for sure.
You talked about transitioning into being a developer and kind of your cause and your purpose and looking at general contractors and bringing those in. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about how you evaluate GCs and what that process looks like? And then the second part of that is just how is important or they understand what you're doing. Not everybody has a wellness background. Just kind of talk about how you, A, evaluate them, bringing in the right partner, and then, B, making sure they're part of the mission.
Sure.
I told you one of my reasons for starting this was like a selfish reason because I wanted to learn from my company. This is one of those questions where I'm like, I'm going to be locked in. How do you evaluate contractors before you hire them?
I got the good stuff here.
I know, right? Well, you know what? It's kind of like when you're dating and you're trying to meet somebody that clicks with you, and sometimes you can click with someone, but you realize the basic values might not be there. Sure. And so I try to explain to people what my values are right up front.
You take them to Harp and Crown before you hire them?
We do a little wine and dine.
Yeah, right.
And I just want to make sure that they understand my biggest thing, my most important is communication with other people and what I expect. And I can never get upset with someone if I'm not clear with them about what my expectations are. So, for example, one thing that's a really particular is finished carpentry. And we've worked with contractors who they did a finished project for us, and it wasn't up to our level of what we'd expect in a certain type of home. And so we had to redo it all. And at the end of the day...
When you say finished carpentry, like what did you redo?
The trim on the entire house. Around the doors, around the molding. And,
hefty.
And it's, I get it because we've been contractors. I get it's hard to find the right people to do those work. But sometimes what it takes is I'd like to just know what is important to you first. And if it is, knowing when they're going to ask you for a draw, then you should be clear with them. Hey, let me know when you're going to need a draw from me ahead of time so I can prep for it.
So do you like go into like something like that, for instance, do you get that specific? Do you say, hey, I want you to know, like, we expect good communication? Or are you literally like, hey, listen, like, if you need a draw, you need to communicate. If there's like something that's a little bit off and you have a contractor that's, delaying you, we need to know what's happening there. And do you get specific or?
Yeah, I will. So we'll meet now once a week, and this is trial and error because we just recently, the last 2 years, have been using Contractors, and so we've made mistakes too. Because initially I was like, great, they know how to do everything, and I assumed that they knew that what I wanted, but they don't. And
yeah, right. That was our biggest mistake because we hired trusted professionals and then we trusted them. But in reality, you can only, you have to also have that technical knowledge yourself. You have to know what's going on and then stay up to date because they're only going to be as good for you as they can be for themselves.
Exactly. And I think a good way to go about that is doing weekly meetings, writing up notes of what you
site meetings?
It doesn't have to be site. I would do Zoom, but like at least once a month site, or every other week. Because if you can knock out any issues you see ahead of time before they become a problem, then it saves everybody money and time. And that just is being proactive. But the weekly meetings where I write down all the notes of stuff we talk about has really helped me to make sure, accountability wise, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, Has
there ever been a time where you refer back to those notes where you're like, hey, listen, you told me on this date, I have it right here in my notebook, and then now it's not done?
There's a lot of nodding for those that are just on the audio.
I mean, and listen, it's like we're all human and we all make mistakes all the time. Right. So if I can put in any processes, I also used to work in research. So I try to create as many processes as possible for the business so that I have rough days and I don't want to leave it to a rough day to forget what I'm supposed to do. So I just try to help out everybody. That has helped me a lot, is creating a dashboard of every little thing that happens in a project from start to finish, from acquisition to settlement, all the documents I need, everything. And so I can just check it off. And then, I have a meeting notes section, so I type in all my notes every week and it's recorded somewhere.
Do you use like a specific software for that, or is that just on like Google Sheets?
Oh, I use Asana.
It's called Asana?
And then I just copy and paste. I just copy that project and keep doing. Every time I got a new project, and my assistant will update dates of everything that was signed and fully executed. Every form has to be fully executed.
Oh, wow. And it's all kept within, is it sort of like a construction management software?
It's like not construction, but like a project management software where it will, you can create folders and you can create, cards for to-do, assign people different tasks. But it keeps it exactly precise. So you know how every job is different. Sometimes you don't need certain permits, you don't need certain plans. It just depends.
Environmental or survey, whatever. Yeah.
And I only did that because it was helping me in the beginning to learn. Yeah. I was like, sometimes you need phase 2 environmentals, and sometimes the environmentals are clean, so you don't need them. Or, now I learned I have to submit the sprinkler permit ahead of time because that's what holds everything up. So it's like that line item goes all the way to the top. So it's little stuff like that.
So you created this system just by basically documenting your process and documenting your mistakes that you made so it could be different for next time.
Yeah. I just never want to make the same mistake twice. Yeah. And I've made them. So
yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Turn this into a product.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, can I sell
that's what I was thinking. I was like, can I pay you to have it?
That's what I'm here for.
This Asana software, is this something that you can invite other professionals onto as well and designate tasks to them? So your contractor, do they make an account and then you give them tasks from Asana?
I'm not honestly there yet. Yeah. I think that would be key, would be to do that, but then I'd have to get them to sign up. But I have a finance partner on a project right now, and one of the sections is like debt lenders, and he's helping me source a debt lender. So we put down all the debt lenders, and then the notes about each debt lender, what their terms are, when they talk to them, and that's what he's assigned to. So he's been updating that every week, and I can know without checking in on him, where we're at with that.
It's almost nice. It reminds me of like Slack or something, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Slack where you can communicate, but also assign tasks.
Yeah, that's really cool. So just kind of a different kind of question. And it sounds to me like you guys are very thorough. You have a lot of processes in place to ensure that everything is kind of monitored. Is that kind of the same with all your other partners that, you work with other than the GC, like, sales and marketing, all those other types of things? Like, is that kind of how you guys, do you use this software for every aspect of the business, or is it just kind of finance, GC, so on?
I do love tracking.
Yeah.
I'm a tracker. It's so nerdy.
Hey, if it works.
All right, nerds around the world.
Yeah. But I do, every time, like our agent Jody, I have like a spreadsheet for her, Google Sheets, and so she'll update every time there was a showing, what happened, feedback. So, and it informs us. It's like, that actually happened with us recently, where we built a duplex, and there were 3 bedrooms in this one room, and it made the room too small. And that was the feedback on 2 people.
3 closets?
3 closets. It was like 2 inside and then 1 on the outside. And we had talked about it, and half in, half out. We're like, all right, let's keep it. Everyone wants more storage. But once it was drywalled, it was too small. We knocked them out. Now it looks so much better. And so that feedback was like real time. We were like, after 2 showings, that's good enough for us. Let's do it. So
nice.
It saves a little bit of time. I mean, at the end of the day, you're saving interest sitting on the market. You're saving, just our headspace having it on the market.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
To kind of talk about that, like the market in general, I noticed that you guys, there's some developers out there that they only focus on multifamily, only rental, only purchase. You guys are kind of unique. You do a little bit of both. Can you kind of walk us through the thought process on that? Why you kind of have a little bit of a balance, and if you have a preference or anything on that?
Well, we originally started out doing single family new construction homes, 25 years ago. So that is something that we feel like we can do in our sleep. And new construction apartment buildings, we just added that aspect of our business about 3.5 years ago. And we love both for different reasons. Some of our investors love our single family home product because they feel comfortable that it's a shorter time period as far as how they want to deploy their capital. And then we have other groups that they really want to be a part of a longer standing asset. They want more monthly cash flow. So it's all really dependent on what we find and, what our investors are interested in. But especially with this wellness project that we have going on for the commercial space, this co-working space, I'm really steering towards this commercial mixed-use apartment building development right now.
So that's
just because
more
you're enjoying that process, you're saying, with the space.
Yeah, I just really fell into it. It's something that during COVID, it just became such the forefront of our minds that mental health and wellness was so important to everybody. At first, we kind of thought it was just our thing. And, between my dad and I, we're really wellness geeks. Like, he just got Reiki last week.
Awesome.
Which is like the greatest thing ever.
I learned what that was like
You do your cold tubs.
I do my cold tubs. I'm all about meditation every morning and all about my headspace. And I cannot go talk to anybody until I've done gotten myself, aligned. And that was
going to be one of my questions for you. Is like, this is just it can be a very stressful environment and career path, but you always have such a calm presence. Like, how? How do you do that?
I would venture to say happy. I don't know if I've seen Allie many days not smiling, not looking like she's having, and I'm like,
oh gosh, I'm glad you guys think that. I would say seeing people, being around people does make me really happy. I think the toughest thing for me about this business is it can be you're on your own island a little bit. And you have so many things in the air. This deal has to go up, this thing just happened with this project, and you don't know if the city didn't accept some of your plans for whatever reason. There's just so much out of your control in this business that I've realized there is nothing I control except myself and making sure that I'm in a good place and that our business is doing the right thing all the time.
It's very stoic
protected.
of you. Yeah.
It's just too many things can happen with so many different entities that are involved in what we do.
It's like a constant reminder of the only thing that you actually can control is your perspective towards the situation. You can't control the specific events or the various events that are going to pop up and whatever route that they end up taking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about like partners and how to best choose people. And honestly, that is one of our most important things right now is who do we partner with moving forward, and we always make sure that we have the right values and that we're aligned in that way, because
It's where you start.
it's where you start. Yeah, because it's hard when you're dealing with a partner who is either doesn't have the right values, they're not aligned with you on the type of product you're trying to build. And, maybe there's like a competency issue there. So it's always really important that we communicate our expectations and values up front.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I'm curious then. So it sounds like a lot of what you're looking at is more that commercial multifamily. Do you think it's even possible, I'm wondering, to create that environment for a for sale? Because the type of people that I know a lot of that are doing social impact development in the city, almost all of them, it seems to be, are in that apartment space for those people out there that are looking at, say, hey, I mostly just do single family or I do multifamily, but I do on the for sale side. Do you think it's possible to create that environment when you have, maybe more turnover? I don't know. Curious.
That's interesting, like designing the space at wellness inspired.
Yeah.
I think that is seriously the next step for us as we're developing these spaces. We've been thinking, the apartment building we're doing that's wellness inspired is going to have a sauna, a yoga studio, meditation room, these things, and that is going into our next development that we're doing.
Where's that one?
Yeah.
That's going to be on 4th and Vine. It's in Old City,
Nice.
and this is
Great spot for that.
Yeah. It's something that we've seen a lot, like at the Poplar. They just did a knockout job, Post Brothers on the design, and
That building's awesome.
It's amazing. And they do have a lot of features that I think are really amazing, and I would be happy to live in a place like that. But what we're trying to do that's differentiating us here is like the design, the materials that we put in the building. They're all going to have an aspect of nature and organic elements to it.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I have. Do you mean like an actual one built now, or
no? Like you're putting design elements that have like an actual like aspect of nature that's infused in it. Like I'm curious what like an example of that would be. What sort of material?
Sure. So we are actually doing green plants, green walls, a water
This man
feature.
likes green walls.
I do. I'm trying to
Doesn't
convince
love
Ty to
them.
put a living moss wall in our office, and he's just like, dude, like, what? Are you gonna water it? Like, it doesn't need that much. Like, I'm
Doesn't.
trying to convince him.
Needs a little spray.
Yeah, just a
I
spray.
really want to see this live wall. I think it makes a podcast.
It does. It does.
Yeah. We're like, well, Josh is now he has a hand in the ring because we're making that level of the office just a podcast studio. So.
Oh, that's great. Put it in there.
Yeah.
You'll be spending
I'm
all your time in there. You just need a
Exactly.
little bit. There's a
Some
lot
greenery.
of healing benefits to that,
See, I need you to talk to him now. He'll listen to you. He's done listening to me.
It'll affect the wellness. Yeah. That's really cool. So, for a lot of your other projects in South Philly and other places, you do a lot of customization there too. So this isn't really going to be just like a from scratch initiative when it comes to customization, right? You do that on a lot of your projects now, right?
That's right. And we've done that since the beginning because we found that people, if they have the option to choose, it just gives them a little bit more flexibility. And we enjoy picking out the finishes. That's something that we really take pride in, and hand picking and customizing. Each house is different. We never do the same house twice. So
That's cool. A lot of people can't say that.
Yeah.
Does it ever come with any like problems? Because, I hear a bunch of developers that'll say, I'm never doing customization again, or, how going through that process, or we did too much custom, but you guys seem to have maybe not as many issues there.
Well, we did.
There was a pause.
We did.
There was a pause.
And to be honest, it was a learning process. That was a learning process because we found that sometimes if you offer too many options, like anybody, if they have too many options, it's kind of difficult to make a choice, and then it delays your construction.
So you're offering customization to the end buyer. You try to pre-sell, and then they can customize.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you just give them, like different levels? Like you'll just say, hey, these are the tiles. You can one of 3 countertops, one of 4 tile choices.
Yeah, I stick to 3 because otherwise
3?
I get confused.
Yeah, nice.
And everyone gets confused, so we keep the number always the same, and then
oh, sweet. So it's everything, like 3 hardwood floor, 3 cabinet color, 3 counters, 3 tile, all that. Wow.
Yeah, and that way it allows us to give the buyer some choices and some option to feel like, I really did choose this on my own, and this is what I picked out, and but we know that it also looks great. We at one point, a buyer had asked us to make their own choices apart from our selections, and honestly, just I wouldn't have picked those colors together, but at the end of the day, so we want to also have a product that looks amazing at the end.
Well, and are you worried about them backing out too? Because then if they back out, then you have this Uggo you got to sell.
Yeah, exactly. and if it's our name on it, if 2 tile colors just do not match,
right.
That's just hard for us.
Well, that comes from like you're passionate about what you do. You care about the product that you're creating. So like, sorry, your opinion here is wrong.
Or it is within these 3 choices.
False.
Semi-custom.
Semi-custom.
Hey, as long as there's custom in there, it's custom.
It is custom. I've watched a lot how like Ryan Homes and Toll do it, and they are just they go
They're
beyond.
all systems, right?
Oh,
it's just
my gosh, to the doorknob, to the door pull, everything can be customized. Wow. And then they have a ton of additions and things that you could put on the ceiling, coffered ceilings.
I was gonna say, they're like big into the upsells, right?
Yes.
Do you guys ever do that where you're like, oh, you want this sort of lighting here, or do you want these different lighting, different whatever, and you can upsell it? Yeah,
I mean, it depends on the type of home. If it's like a more higher end above a certain price point, we will do that because certain buyers of certain price points will prefer to have those options. So we will, put in certain electricals in certain areas so that it's able to be added in later if they need it.
Right.
But it doesn't cost anything to us to have it added in.
Right. You just kind of cap it and they can choose to add onto it.
Exactly.
Have they ever asked for anything outside of the scope that you were like, okay, we'll do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sauna.
Oh yeah.
Josh said, I want you to build me a house and I need a sauna.
You took my
That's great.
Yeah, I saw my uncle do this like a couple years ago, and I can't unsee it in every house I go in now. I'm like, it would fit right here. What are you talking about?
I'm so glad
you
said that.
You also have the sauna bag, so you're hardcore.
I'm completely remote, so I don't even need it. So it'll fit everywhere for me.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
I wanted to backtrack for a second. Just one of those selfish questions that I mentioned.
Fire.
We were talking about the different types of investing that you do, where you have, you started with single family houses. Now you've done some multifamily development, some mixed use development. What I'm curious of is, like right now, one of our biggest focuses is figuring out the balance between keeping properties for the long term so we can build long-term wealth, and then also like building up some short-term cash flow. So one of the reasons why we're doing, we have our own construction in-house now is because when we have a partnership with someone, we'll tack on a GC fee, and that's like some short-term cash flow. So we don't have to sell everything. So I'm just curious how you find that balance with short-term cash flow versus long-term, like buy and holds and long-term wealth, and what I guess like how that's evolved over time for you.
Can I just add a second question on at the end of that, because I'm curious too? How much of that is dictated by the investor?
You're saying on each individual project?
Yeah, investors in general. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for each individual.
Because I'm talking about like the short-term cash flow for the actual company, right? Versus, the long-term, like, okay, we'll refi this in 10 years or we'll sell it in 10 years or whatever, and, et cetera.
Right. So, and that's a big part of development is managing the cash flow, and you're constantly putting funds out before you even buy the property. You're doing funding all these soft costs, and so that is definitely something that does require capital, and it is helpful to have those for sale. So we've been trying to stick to a model of what is our focus for the multis, because that's ultimately our end goal is the longer term wealth generation.
And then passive cash flow, which would solve the short-term problem all at once you hit that tipping point.
Once you hit the tipping point,
Yeah.
and then the single
So it's like
family homes.
until the tipping point, it's like, how do you balance having that short-term cash flow with, you guys have these beautiful properties in these amazing areas. I'm sure you'd love to keep all of them.
Oh man, I try all the time, every
Right.
which way. How can we make this work? Could
Right.
this one be Airbnb? Like, what can we do? And we're actually doing that right now.
Oh, interesting.
We're actually looking at a project that we have that we were thinking about selling and have on the market to sell. And we just thought, and everything is changing with the rates over the last 6 months.
Sure.
That we decided to sell it, and then we decided to keep it, and then back and forth because the rates kept fluctuating so much. So that's exactly right. The for sale allows us to keep moving and operating our business.
So that's your biggest method of that, like I'm calling it short-term cash flow, but like to keep the business cranking forward is these for sale products.
Exactly.
Do you have like a general rule where you're like, oh, we want to sell a third and then keep 2/3, or it's just sort of depending on what your current situation is?
Yeah, it depends, because some of the for sale that we have are part of certain, it's hard to say 2/3 because, there's maybe 5 homes in one development and 5 in another, and how do you siphon off? I can't sell half of them and then keep the few, because we'll have to. So it's just, and we have different investors in different groups, different developments. So, but as long as we hit our annual operating expense number that we want to hit, then we're good to keep the rest. So that's where we're at right now, where we're thinking about just holding on to a duplex we made. And
Oh, cool. So it's safe to say then, like at the beginning of the year, you will have a goal for how much cash you want the company to bring in. And then once you hit that, then you can maybe get a little bit more aggressive with the holds.
Exactly. And then it was also just bringing in general. So whether that's through fees, through the developer fee or acquisition fee, or is it or through a sales? Because ultimately,
Are those the two ways that you guys have the short-term cash flow come in?
Yes,
Nice.
through selling houses and through our fees.
Oh,
So
nice.
do you, I guess, do you raise outside capital at all?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We're
How
always-
often do you do that?
Well, it's such a fine balance. Everything is such an art with this kind of thing, because sometimes you feel the need to have a deal in your hand to be raising capital. But the truth is that when my dad and I were talking about this last week, actually, when we're talking about investing, and we're really talking about who people want to invest in and what they want to invest in. Sure, people love investing in real estate, but they're investing in our company. And so our model has been just constantly introducing ourselves and growing our network and getting to know people, because we feel so strongly in what we're building that we feel that it's a quality product, and our track record,
Speaks
is
for
something.
itself, essentially.
Yeah, and it's, we've been through a lot. Like, we've had we've been through different economic times and been able to get through all of those times. And I think it's really hard to find a development company that has that staying power, and also just the other qualities of construction background. And so it's really great you guys are getting into that. I think
the goal might eventually be to do what you guys are doing and shift out of it, but we just realized we need the experience of doing it to have the technical knowledge to even properly manage a general contractor,
Yeah.
So
I think so too. I think it'll be a good thing too.
it's a good selling point for you guys too. You have that technical background, and then what you just said is huge. You've been around for 20 years, so you were through 2008 and that whole collapse. And right now, especially with where rates are, demand has dropped to almost zero. Our stuff is just sitting on the market, and just 6 months ago at the price that we have it at, would have sold, not even an exaggeration, within an hour.
Oh, sure.
And it's wild. It's just demand has dropped. So I think a lot of people are a little bit nervous that we're entering into the next big recession here. But you guys already have that track record of how you navigated it in the past. So that's got to be a big selling point.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, that I think it is that kind of time that we're going through right now is something that everybody's going through. And we just try to make the right decisions at the right time. It's all about timing and making sure that we are, staying and being conservative during a time where we feel that some type of recession could occur, and then that way we're ready to go when it's out. And
would that essentially be your advice then to people that are maybe heading into their first one, like myself?
There's never a moment, where they're like, ding, 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 the recession has started.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, no.
Get ready to go, and now it's over. You guys I'll start buying houses again.
Yeah, right.
I'm curious from a strategy standpoint. I know we talked a little bit about South Philly, Old City. You got some different things going on with the current market. I know you guys are Philly based, Philly true. Does that ever come into the discussion of maybe we need to extend our parameters a little bit, go into the suburbs, Jersey, what have you? Has that been a discussion at all, or is that just completely off the table?
Yeah, that actually has been more recently, and that's come about because we found that doing what we're doing now in the model that we're doing it with the development and not having a construction company, we've realized how flexible we can be, and we can, now that we have a very standard process for what we're doing, that we can replicate it in other areas that might have more need for development. I think there's a ton, and there's always going to be need in Philly. I think there's tons of houses to renovate, tons of projects to do for the much far future. But I think there's areas that we could do larger developments and the type of development we want to.
In any
without so
areas
much
you want to leak on, or are we going to hold that for another day?
I mean, it's mostly, areas that you guys have seen.
Okay.
But ideally, like in the next year or two, we're going to stay like tri-state area.
Okay. Cool.
We've been talking about South Carolina. A lot of people talk about South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so my dad and I are headed down there next year just to do a little drive around. And
Some recon.
Recon. What's
Nice.
going on over there?
Yeah.
On the coast, are you talking like?
Just outside Charleston.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you know anybody, you can connect me to. I'd love to talk with somebody down there.
I know a lot of people in the Carolinas, so.
Nice.
That's where you're from, right?
North Carolina, but they're all the same, right?
The Carolinas.
Yeah.
Down there.
I was actually just down there last weekend, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not too bad. So,
It's
cool.
better weather.
Yeah, talking about. Did you want to ask anything else about the strategy? I know you had a couple other.
No,
things.
I was going to switch gears a little bit, and one thing I'm excited to talk about is our best deal, worst deal.
That's
deal
what
dive.
I wanted to talk
That's what
about.
you wanted to get
That's
into?
where I was going.
One of my favorite things that I'm most excited to hear about from people.
Yeah.
We're kind of curious, and whatever this means for you. Maybe it's like best deal, right? Worst deal, and then we want to do a deal dive where we just kind of pick apart one from start to finish.
Sure.
But maybe the best deal is the one where you made the most money. Maybe it's something where you did not even make close to the most money, but it was your favorite for another reason. Same thing with the worst deal. Just curious what that is for you.
Okay.
You can start in either order.
Start in either order. Let's start with the worst deal because I'll end on a positive note.
There we
See,
go.
there she is. It's like, she doesn't let you down.
And I'll be general, but the worst deal, I would absolutely.
Is this personal or Lily?
Lily.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe both.
I mean, the personal one, I would say 10 years ago when I did this project, it was with my brother, and we almost killed each other. He was like calling me at 10 o'clock at night asking me about a plumbing quote. I was like, this is not happening. But
Messing with that Zen.
Yeah, he was messing with my entire Zen.
You don't do that.
And I don't do that. Boundaries. He's always making fun of me for boundaries.
Yeah.
Nick's a banker. You should have been checked out at 5.
I know. I told him, stop working so hard. Yeah. But I think the worst one was was a project we dealt with where it was a bad partner. And that is the only way to put it. didn't have values aligned, did not have competencies aligned. And honestly, we didn't know the partner very well. And I think that was the best experience, though. And I would say that became my best deal because I learned so much about people.
It's a good interview question.
Wow, yeah, this is like, you really flipped that on us.
I mean, I
Same
tell
deal.
myself,
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
because you know what, it was such a bad bad situation, and it was so unpleasant for so long, and it definitely gave me thicker skin and a little bit more of a keener eye to look at somebody of, you know, how do we really want. We're talking about partnership. You're talking about almost virtually getting married in a business. And, you know, that means forever. And do you really want that with someone you don't know that well?
It's funny you say that because, like, you literally started out when we started this conversation saying, you know, how amazing it was to work with your family because you do trust them, you know their values, and that makes sense to hear. That's one of the most important things to you because you experienced the exact opposite. It's almost like that value was solidified through contrast.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, that's such a good point.
How much of your process changed then too from that deal? Because it sounds like you have a very thorough process now. I'm curious, did a lot of that come from that said deal?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. And, you know, I have processes for how to interview different types of employees, to how to interview lenders, to every different type of contracting group that we take on, because I don't, again, want to leave it up to chance. And it's kind of nice not to think about it. It's nice to have like a protocol for following.
So your protocols, it's literally like you're interviewing a banker. You have like 8 questions that you need to hit.
And that way we don't forget. And we have to go back and say, wait, what are those terms? What are these things?
Yeah.
So it is helpful.
How often have you gone from not changing it where you're like, yep, that's perfect, don't need to change it anymore?
Like never.
Oh no, it was like a whole thing. I mean, I've been working full time in real estate for 7 years, and I feel really good about this process that we have now.
Awesome.
And it was helpful to have the construction background, because once you get into, you know, with the construction, it's like there's so much. It's difficult to control.
Unending amount of examples.
unending. And it's like, you know, if I can control just like how much my job, at least, that keeps everybody a little bit accountable.
On your second episode you do with us, I'm going to ask you to bring in that contractor. I'm like, let me know every question here.
I'm happy to share it with you. It took a while to figure it out, but yeah, I mean, that's why I think with all contrast, good things come.
Yeah,
so
I agree. Bill Gates has I think it's attributed to Bill Gates. I think it's him, but he says, I love when I lose because winning seduces smart people into believing that they can't lose. And he's like, he goes on to talk about how he just, when he wins, he celebrates. When he loses, he studies and he sees what he did wrong. It sounds like that's exactly what you did. You found you were in a situation that was exactly the opposite of where you wanted to be, and then you just took pieces out that you didn't like and figured out how to change them to turn it into a reality that you do prefer.
Yeah, and that's been really helpful, and it really was all about hiring the right people, making sure we had a good team with us, and our team is I feel so great about having our accounting firm, our attorneys, everyone is aligned on for the same reasons, and that is what can make you put your head on the pillow at night and make sure you're doing the right thing.
Totally.
So.
Totally. Or like the reverse is like, if you don't have that, like you're not sleeping.
Yes. You're like, are they just going to be out for the month? Are they just not going to respond or whatever? So yeah.
So I'd love to do the deal dive portion, where we can ask you a couple questions. I mean, we could start with,
kind of reading our notes here, just like in general, like we really want to kind of just like pick one apart from start to finish. Like,
if you have one in mind, then we could kind of, basically, this kind of spawned from me working with developers and different types of people, just loving that feedback from a developer where, they love to hear, how you started, how it ended, how it's going, how you acquired it. I guess like we could start there. Do you have a property in mind or a project in mind?
Sure. A completed project?
It's up to you.
Probably,
I guess.
because
that would probably work better with
You
all
wanna
the
know the
questions.
final-
I'm curious about like leasing and like what your perm financing looked like and who you used and stuff like that.
Sure. So, we did a project. It was 16 units and one commercial space. It was mixed use space, which is our office.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we
They're like Bella Vista, right? Where is it exactly?
Yeah, it's right in it's Italian Market,
Yeah.
7th and Christian.
Yeah, oh, sweet.
We got that deal off market, and it was through a sheriff. It was about to go to sheriff sale, and a friend of a friend told us about it, and that's how a lot of our deals come to us, is either through people in the neighborhood or people through friends of friends, agents.
You're from Philly, right?
Yep.
Saying like your dad like grew up here as well.
Yep, he's from Southwest Philadelphia. I grew up on Front and Catherine, so Queen Village, and we lived here up until I was in high school, and we moved to New Jersey.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, like a microcosm of that is our best deals always come from referrals too. It's like you guys have spent the last 40 years networking here, so naturally you have those relationships ingrained in the communities. But that's great.
Yeah, and it's always good to like meet new people because everything changes, deals change, the way we do business changes.
Totally.
And so like even I've called you about stuff, like it's just helpful to have as many people around you as possible to learn from.
Was your dad always a developer?
No.
Okay.
This is his second career.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is mine too, but his second.
What was his first? And then we'll get back to this.
Yeah,
deal.
sorry, I'm
he's got-
hijacking
He's
again.
got
No,
a
just
great
curious.
story. He was a pharmacist for.
Really?
I
yeah.
would never have guessed
Never,
it,
right? Never.
He just seems in the command when I see him.
Oh,
you
yeah?
know? Like, yeah.
That's
You go to pick
No,
up
I
your
mean, nothing-
prescription. He's like, "No, I'm not giving you this. You need something else." Switches you over.
I know he owned a chain of 12 drugstores. So he started
Okay.
out with one. He was 24 and his friend was a pharmacist too. He got his degree and they both were pharmacists. He said, "Hey, I want to open up this pharmacy." And
In
so,
Philly?
out in Delaware County.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but he had a few in Philly too. They were out Delaware and Montgomery and Philly. And he started, each one by one. He was renovating them too. So I think that was like his thing all along.
Caught the itch.
Yeah, he just always liked picking locations. That's always been like, I can see him thinking too and looking at something, be like, that'd be a great spot for that. He's really, you and I were talking about this. Like, there's always two people in the group, the team. It's like one person who is like the visionary, and then the other person who's like the operations, like more the type A. So,
Yeah, you got to have like the captain of the ship who's like making sure that it navigates and that it's moving, and then you have to have the person who's like actually on the ship, like making sure that the specific boards aren't cracking.
Exactly. Keeping everything
Making sure the
together.
ship
I thought you were
stays
going to
together.
say steering, and you just went like,
No,
with
the captain's steering.
Yeah.
The captain's steering. And
It's all maintained,
Yep.
staying afloat.
Somebody's out there with a nail gun.
yeah, literally, like making sure it doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, it sounds like he had an eye for it even when he wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
But back to our deal. So 7th and Christian, property is about to go to, would you say tax or mortgage?
Probably a sheriff sale.
Sheriff's, like it was going to tax sale? Or was it like a
Tax sale.
mortgage?
Yeah,
Tax sale?
it was going tax.
So it's headed to tax sale. What was the property at that time?
It was a commercial space and a couple warehouses and garages. It was just a bunch of garages next to it. Yeah.
Single story garages.
3 single-story garages and then one apartment above a garage. They renovated it out.
So you were looking at it as like knocking it down and doing what you guys now have.
Well, actually, we wanted to do single-family homes because that was our first rental. And we went through zoning. We tried to do a row of single-family homes with parking. And actually, the zoning board denied us.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What'd they say? Yeah.
They said they didn't. It was a one curb cut. They didn't want people to be on the roofs throwing what's it called?
Like cigarettes or something?
Cigarettes and fireworks on the roofs. They were really worried about the fireworks going on, and they were worried about
Interesting.
all the extra cars on the street.
So specific.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
did not
that
see
was
that
that was
coming
one
at
of
all.
the
What was the lot
comments.
zoned?
It was zoned RM1.
Oh, really? Okay, nice.
Yeah, so-
But it had a commercial component,
So
or it's 2 separate lots?
there's 5 lots. The commercial component was on the corner, and then we did apartments above. We renovated the existing apartments above. So we kept the corner. We didn't knock that down, and we knocked down the other 4 lots and built 4 triplexes in a row.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So it's 4 triplexes, like 12 units, right next to commercial with how many units above the
4.
Got you.
Yeah.
So when you went to the zoning board, I'm assuming since it was going to tax sale, you guys had already owned it at that point?
Yes. Yeah. We had already purchased it.
So how do you analyze that deal then when you're looking at it like you're going to the zoning board and you very well could and did like get denied for what you thought you were going to do?
Well, we always make sure before we do it that we have a backup option.
So the contingency was already set with the 4 triplexes.
Yeah, we had already known, okay, well, worst case, we'll do the triplexes and we'll sell them as condos. We had wanted to do the condo play.
Oh, nice.
And then, as we were doing this project, we analyzed the apartment deal and we, during that time, decided to kind of shift models completely and get into rentals. So that gave us really great impetus.
Timing.
It was good timing. It was, we had learned a lot and figured that made the most sense right there.
So what'd you guys get it for?
Kind of for pretty cheap, actually.
Nice.
That's how we actually have our best deal. It was about to go to tax sale and it needed to close in like 2 weeks. And we were just like, all right, we'll get title done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But we need it for this price.
Yeah.
No, I think it's always funny how like hearing people got their best deals always seemed to like be like, you almost didn't even know it was going to be your best deal at first too. Like,
Or it was a distressed situation. Like it ends up being a win-win
yeah.
because they don't lose the property.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Like the sellers were fine, and it worked out well for everybody.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was an interesting deal because that was also our first deal. We learned a lot on that. That was our first deal. We hired a contractor. So,
who was the contractor on that?
TBC Contractors, TD Brothers Contractors.
Was that like good experience working with them?
Yeah, they're great guys. They have a team that can handle the entire job. And, honestly, like I can say that we were more involved than we even needed to be because they were really equipped to handle it. So,
nice.
Yeah.
How long did the project take from start to finish?
It took about... we renovated the first unit within, 4 months. So we started renting that out, the first building with the commercial and apartments above. And then it took us about 10 months, 11 months to do the 4 triplexes.
So you actually were bringing in income during that.
Yeah.
So how long did the renovation take?
4 months.
Okay, so the renovation was only 4 months, and then you were able to rent that out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, those were fun though because it was an old house. So we'd see stairs underneath we'd take the kitchens out and we'd see stairway under it, and
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's
it was
cool.
fun to see.
Yeah.
Sounds like you didn't have a problem renting them out either. Like
No,
Yeah, that
because,
area is pretty quick.
Yeah, there's not too much newer housing stock in that neighborhood. So
How did you guys finance that one? Like the construction?
Meridian Bank.
Oh, I love Meridian.
I love Meridian.
They're great.
They're amazing. We actually just settled with they're doing 2 deals with us right now, and they
Nice.
just settled with us today, and they are just amazing.
I just recommended them to a friend. Like they are the best to work with on the construction side.
For sure.
They're awesome.
For sure.
awesome.
I did a quick renovation, and they were very easy. He just allowed me to take pictures, and that was it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
sweet.
So they did the whole thing? They did the triplexes and the renovation, and it was all one loan?
It was all one loan. We packaged it all together, and it was super simple with them. Everything is very great from the inspection process to.
Do you guys have a partner too for the equity piece, or you own that one just yourself?
We own that now ourselves. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would
That's a
you
cool
would
one.
you do anything differently going back in it through once you were finished? Like, would you have done it any differently? Asking the tough ones.
Yeah, I think we had we noticed that when we were building 16, 17 units at one time, that when we decided to take the contractor on later on in the process. So now it's informed us, once we settle on it, before we even settle, we've already picked out our contractor. We know we've agreed upon the budget. So we wanted to, I think that was a one thing would be making sure the budgets are all correct.
Did you make the budget yourself for this one then?
Just
Yeah.
gonna ask
That's
that.
nice
Yeah.
to have that. What was the budget for the construction? Because there's like multiple pieces.
Yeah. I mean, the renovation, well, there were, but the 4 triplexes were the same.
Right. Yeah.
So it kind of made that
Sort of
easy.
just two.
Yeah, like
two
2 types
phases.
of budgets. Yeah, so that one happened, and then that once we finished that up, then we did the 4. Yeah, it was about 3.2
Okay. Oh, total.
total.
Do you remember what the renovation was versus the
250, the renovation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you spent a really small portion of the construction budget getting that renovation done, and then immediately brought income into the project. Do you remember? Did it like almost break even for you for your interest that you were paying?
Oh, that's
with
a
the
great
income
point.
coming in.
Honestly,
So if you have no holding costs, it's just amazing.
yeah, that's a really great point. Probably not once we got further along, because that construction loan was,
Hefty.
yeah.
Maybe in the beginning.
Maybe in the
but
very
not once you
first few
drew,
months. Yeah.
Majority of it.
Yeah. But it was fun. I mean, I love renovating. I could renovate all day. I think that's the fun part.
Yeah. But you like the obstacles that you randomly uncover.
Yeah. Well, you could be kind of creative.
I was
You
gonna say,
could
I
throw
don't think
something
anyone
together.
else has ever
I know,
said like,
nobody
oh yeah, I
actually
prefer
likes it.
renovating over
But
new
don't you
construction.
feel it's like so rewarding when
I
you're
actually
done?
like it. Too.
Yeah.
That's where we're trying. I mean, we're doing it for sort of a different reason. We can kind of catch a little bit of a competitive advantage with the renovations over the new construction. New construction's like kind of just it costs what it costs for the most part, but the
Yeah.
renovations we tend to, you can like do separate things. You can value engineer it a lot more efficiently than new construction, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's I think it's kind of fun to find out a way to do something in a little bit more efficient way.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
a
what
more
you're doing?
complicated puzzle, I think.
I was gonna say, is that what you're doing on your own? Like your own projects? Are those mostly renovations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll do like one a year. That's just a renovation that I rent out for myself.
Okay. So how do
That's
you
nice.
decide then what goes under? Is it if somebody brings an opportunity to you? How do you decide what goes under Lily and what goes under you?
If it's small, if it's like a house, a single family home house, or just a regular triplex duplex, I'll do it myself.
Okay.
But if it's, if my dad and I talk every day, so if
Sure.
it's something that I think would benefit the company more, then we would do it together. But this
That's
is
never been an issue for you guys. like,
no,
figuring that out.
not at all. And honestly, I do it because I love it. So it's more of like me.
Dad's like, do it. Do this
Yeah,
one.
he's like, you really want to do another renovation? You're doing this. But it's kind of just like more of like I get such like satisfaction at the end of it.
That's a creative outlet for you more than like the income from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really is. It just
Yeah.
feels so, I did this with my own hands kind of thing. So,
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's important. I feel like you need those things that, like we were talking about before, you can't pour from an empty cup if you're constantly giving. But if you find something within this business that gives back to you, then those things are important to just really step on the gas on, I think.
That's so true. That is
Refill your cup whenever you can. That's kind of what this is for me, to be honest.
That's great. That in the end of the day will like be the thing that keeps you going.
I kind of wanted to talk on that a little bit. You've talked a little bit about the projects and how those are giving back in themselves, the individual projects to the individuals, but you guys do a lot for the community outside of your projects. Can you talk a little bit about that, and some new programs you've adopted with this new build that you guys are doing right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have 2 projects coming up that are really exciting that I am out of my skin excited about. The first one is a 15-unit development in Bella Vista. It's going to be an aging in place center. And I don't know why. It's just something my dad and I separately we're both passionate about that population. And
I've never even heard of that. Is that a thing that you guys invented, or is this like something that's happening already?
Well, aging in place is something that you could design a space that's adaptable for people, and that's what there's been a lot companies out there that they will come in and renovate your space so that it's adaptable for you as you age. So whether it's to be able to get up the stairs with a chairlift or an elevator, and it's little things like having a movable cabinet under the sink so that you can access the sink with your wheelchair, having grab bars in the bathroom so that you can move around, more access, just every light switch
Wow, there's a lot of little
There's
things.
all these touches to it. And it's so, it's so helpful.
Yeah.
And, we were this is where it came from, 2 places. I was in this business program, and this woman was telling me about how much need there is for at-home nurse care. And because most
a lot of boomers and stuff.
A lot of boomers, and there's no adaptability. They can't move around as easily. And one of the issues is most people don't want to move out of their houses.
Sure. Yeah.
They just want to stay in place. And, especially for that time period where they're getting older, that's when it's hardest to I've had grandparents, and they don't want to leave their house, but it's not safe for them to be there. So that's what I'm excited about this project, because it's so creative. There's so many things that you can do to make the space more adaptable, and we can call it that. And there's an elevator, people can move in and out. Yeah, and it's for the neighborhood. And we were in a zoning meeting, a community neighborhood meeting, and someone said at the end last year, she was like, well, what are you guys going to build for us? And I was like, that really hit me, because I was like, wow, I feel for you. You're right. What are we building for you? These houses don't have elevators in them, and it's not specific for people as they age. And it's little things like the threshold, getting over a threshold in a door, just having it smooth. These things that we don't think about.
It's crazy. You've literally just rattled off like 6 separate examples that I was thinking, like, what is aging in place? And I thought about the bars in the bathroom, but that was it. But all these small things, I can imagine it takes a lot of forethought.
Yeah, but that's what the fun part is.
Yeah.
That's like, oh wow, so
you
we
are
can
a nerd.
do these things. Yeah.
Forethought, that's the fun part.
I'm like
That
sitting
sounds
there
like
on
a
my
bumper
plans.
sticker.
I know. Well, when my dad was doing this for a while when I was younger, I used to say, well, what do you love most about it? Like, what is your purpose when you do this? And he was always like, I love seeing a finished house, and I love giving somebody a beautiful home and beautifying the neighborhood. And that's what we still do. And, we've
awesome.
added this little niche of making sure that it's for our community and beneficial for them too.
Are those rental products, or is that a for sale product?
That's a rental.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So people, you're basically expecting someone to move in and stay for 20 years. Like you have a tenant in place for however long.
And exactly. And that's also great for us. I mean, it's great to have the same tenant, and it's just great for something. We've managed our own properties for the last 3 years now. We've built relationships with people, and I've realized the better relationship we have, the longer they stay, because they just feel comfortable and at home.
I mean, just taking that 5% vacancy hit off the pro forma is like, that's a huge help too.
That is a huge help. I mean, I hope they stay as long, but they'll be nice units.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think that the things that are win-win scenarios are what, it's how this country was built so quickly. Is it was constantly creating win-win situations. Like, that's such a big win for you guys, and it's such a big win for the community. Like, that's business done right.
Thank you.
Along with that, I've read about what some of the different things you guys are doing in your neighborhoods, kind of as we talked about at the beginning of bridging that gap within the community. Can you talk a little bit about how you're bringing in the art community into some of your projects? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. We had that fundraiser, the mural art, funding the fundraiser for the mural arts. And it really came about just because we were driving around one day, and I just noticed how many beautiful, not just noticed, I grew up here, so it's just always been a fixture in something. And I'm a big art person, and I love painting. I go to Fleischer Art School during the night, and so that's just a passion of mine. And I just noticed how it beautifies the area wherever you are. It just creates a little character, and I feel like it's a Philly thing.
Yeah, gives people pride too, where they're at.
Yeah.
Really resonates with people. So.
And so we're doing a mural on our building, and we're connected with Mural Miles, this mural run company, nonprofit. They go to different runs every month, and they stop by different murals and talk about the purpose behind each mural. And it's it's historical. It's so interesting.
So they don't create it.
They do not create it, but we just did our first fundraiser with them where they helped raise some funds, and we're matching it to do a mural on our building.
That was going to be my question, is how you're actually creating it. Like, are you guys just coming out of pocket, or you're So it sounds like they raised half, and then you guys are throwing up the other half.
Yeah.
And is it like a local artist, or who's creating it?
Local artist. His name's Eric Okta. So talented.
Cool.
It's amazing. I don't know how he does it, but they are using 2 runners and who are in the mural miles as and their stories are amazing. About one of them is a refugee, and another person is part of the LGBTQ community, and running saved his life. And it was just the theme is movement and growing, and that's kind of where we went with it.
Is it done yet?
Our paint day is gonna be in a couple weeks.
He's gonna do it in one day.
I don't know. I think he's gonna do it.
The murals that she had, like at this fundraising event, and
That was the one at your guys' house, right,
Yeah.
that I came to.
We were both there.
Yeah.
It's like I was watching this gentleman paint this thing, and I was like asking him. I was so blown away. I was like literally not saying anything, like creeping over his shoulder.
I'll say you're probably like up his ass. Someone get this guy out of here.
I was like, where did you come up with this? He's like, well, I knew I wanted to use green. And I was like, he's like, has all these elaborate things, and this was just coming to them. So I totally could see whoever doing this in a day, but it was really cool what you did. I thought it was a great way to tie in the community, but it was also like every room, they had a different artist doing a different theme. So that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a different open house.
Yeah. It was a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it came together.
Yeah. Wait, so when did you say the painting day is?
I will let you know. I don't think they have it scheduled, but we have to do it before it gets cold. So
Yeah, right.
it's supposed to happen in October.
Depending on when this airs, we'll have it out there. So
Oh, nice.
Do you have a picture of it already? Like, how did that process work?
Yeah. So, well, I told them.
Are you about to debut it?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
That's so fun.
we could put it out there on the link as well.
On the interwebs?
Yeah, on the interwebs.
Yeah, that was. We actually just kind of looked at it today, and we're like, we're sold. We love it.
Oh, amazing! So this literally happened today.
This just happened. Yeah.
Where is this going to be?
It's going to be on 7th and Christian. There's this.
Oh, on your office building.
Yep.
Oh, no way.
And so it has a little, we talked about symbolism, and they made it have a little bit of a lily in there. And
Wow.
2 runners.
That's incredible. And just for those, listening.
That's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
You have to maintain these things. Like I had no idea. I was talking to the mural arts representatives. Like they only last like about 3 years or something. And then they have to be like, there's a lot of maintenance involved, and Philly has I think it's like 100 murals or something. I'm just throwing out a number there, but it's a lot.
That is a cool thing about Philly. It's like having local artists come and paint a mural on the side of the building. You walk around Philly and there's just art everywhere. It's really cool.
I know.
One of the things I love about the city.
Me too. And you're learning something. We should do the run if you guys are up for it.
How long is the run?
Well, it's not too bad. Maybe 2 to 3 miles.
I would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 20 or
No.
something. I was like, that's not too bad.
You just started running again. You're good.
Yeah. I did start running again.
You do the cold bath. Come on.
I throw me in the tub or run 3 miles. I'll take my chances with the tub.
Yeah, it'll be fun. They curate it, so.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, you'll have to let us know. I mean, I would totally do that.
Oh, for sure. I definitely will. We got some of the neighbors, community. We're doing another fundraiser, and the community members, we told them about it, invited them. So this time,
Sweet.
yeah, they'll be here helping us fundraise and helping us showing up.
Amazing.
It'll be nice to have everybody.
I think it's really important, especially for a lot of newer developers, understanding, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, getting that community buy-in. I don't know if I necessarily like the phrasing of that. It's just when the community feels like they're a part of that project, it's not even, there's not even necessarily buy-in. It just becomes one natural ecosystem. And
It's rewarding when you do it correctly. Some of the stuff, obviously the RCO has a reputation for just being difficult to get through. And it's not an easy process, but I think when you engage with the community, there's definitely a lot to benefit, us as a developer. We've had some experiences at the RCO that have been incredible experiences and allowed us to meet our neighbors, people that we've still stayed in contact with. And we're setting up really cool things in different neighborhoods. We're supposed to set up a meeting once our office is done. We're going to set up a meeting for a couple people that have asked us about they know they're going to stay in their house, but they want to learn about creative financing so that they can keep it. And we're just going to run like a little workshop to teach people about like how they can work with banks for creative financing so they can keep their houses, which is like the exact opposite. But
Or
it's
lenders.
a really rewarding
Wow,
experience.
that's so amazing.
So
Gotcha. I just got that.
I am I'm eager to get to our last question. I'm very curious your answer here, but did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on? I think
I'm
it's been
pretty
a great
excited
conversation.
for the last question too.
Yeah. So this is how we want to, finish off every one of these conversations. It's something that, like, if I had just one question to ask, any developer that I was in the room with, I would be curious of if you lost all of your money and your connections, just, God came down and wiped them out, but you were allowed to keep your knowledge. What would you do today in Philadelphia to restart?
I would start setting up as many coffee meetings as possible with every single developer in Philly. I would try to get to know everybody and network. And that is really the number one thing is though we feel like we're by ourselves as developers, and we sometimes are, really the only strength you have is like the people around you to help. Because I cannot say we've done any development alone. Like, somebody has helped us, somebody has supported us in some way, given us information, given us support in some way that's like made our development better.
Yeah.
So I would say network with as many people as possible and see where you can what you can, if you already know that info, that's value. If you have the knowledge, you have a lot of value. Most people don't know the knowledge, but they could have the capital or the land or, so that's everything, I think. It's just putting it together.
I think most people have this misconception that, like, if you have money, then everything else figures its way out. But what's interesting is, so I agree. I think the knowledge is the most important thing. You can take someone who knows what they're doing here in this city. We could drop you in the middle of India and you'd be able to figure it out and build a big portfolio of real estate there because you have the knowledge. But what I think is interesting is your first impetus when asked that question had nothing to do with the money. It was just, you lost your network and your money. What do? You're like, I get my network back.
Yeah.
Like, my first thing I do is I get my network back.
And I would have told you something differently when I was just starting out, because I thought the same thing. I thought it was all about that. And it's not only about, building your network. You need a network for your community. You need a community of people to like bounce ideas off of, just as a support. So if you're going to do this kind of business, you got to have a support.
Yeah, you can't do it by yourself.
Gotta have, I
love that answer.
Yeah. I love the words, when I hear about the development community, it's community and it's ecosystem. And I think ecosystem is a nice phrasing of it, because if you don't have the right balance, the ecosystem's off, right? So, how you create that ecosystem is, just as important. So, well, thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Hey,
this was great. Had such an awesome conversation.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to connect again.
Yeah, it's always good catching up with you.
I know.
Always so smiley.
This is fun for me. I love talking. I could talk all day.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have you on again for episode 2 for Lily Development. But in the meantime, we appreciate it.
Hey,
All right,
thanks.
thanks,
Thanks
Allie.
again, guys.
Take care.